And then as a start, I'm going to hand it over to you, Arushi. Go ahead.
Okay. So I will then just get started with question 1 since we're going to go through all of them anyway. So Ravila, your background as an engineer, attorney, and executive coach provides you with obviously a very unique perspective since you have your creative side and your analytical side to solve, all kinds of business issues. So how do you kind of combine your perspective on all three to approach any kind of business challenges or business situations?
Okay, so I think being an engineer and attorney, you're using two different sides of your brain. So the engineer, the training I received as an engineer and the way my mind operates when I'm in that mode is you look at assumptions and you solve a problem and you come out with an answer. And it's very important to drive to an answer with an engineering approach, but you're really focused on solving a problem. When you switch over to being trained as an attorney as well, the quintessential answer that attorneys give people is it depends, right? That's the answer that most lawyers will give you. And, when I'm as an attorney, I'm searching for an answer, but as an engineer, I'm searching for the answer. But as an attorney, you're really trying to say, well, things depends on how you view the situation. So the attorney side of me is always going to look at the downside, like what can go wrong here. And as long as I've planned and thought about what can go wrong and I've planned for that downside, those two sides can work in great concert together. So I'm problem solving on one hand, I'm looking at what can go wrong. So I've kind of got a breath. With the coaching piece of it, which I got later in my career when I became a certified executive coach, what that did is it allowed me to ask very powerful questions. It allowed me to be quiet and listen. But it also allowed me to bring in new perspectives. As a coach, you don't have the answers at all. And you're not there to tell people what to do. So when I'm dealing with business challenges, the engineer in me is solving it, the attorney is thinking what can go wrong, and the coach is saying what are the right questions to ask right now. And so those three things come together, I think, in a very rich way to look at problem solving. So I am not just prescribe just one answer and that's it. I'm trying to bring a very rich solution with different perspectives.
Right. So when you are able, wait, sorry, Anuka, were you saying something?
No, I said I like it.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Tell me if that's like is that the right amount of information or?
Absolutely. You can tell us more if you want to share some kind of like anecdote or some story that kind of puts it all together, maybe a certain situation which you had to approach where you brought together all these three skills or like brought together all three perspectives. That could be nice and add to the story for sure.
Okay. I don't have one right offhand, so if I think of one, I'll let you know.
Okay.
Okay, that's totally fine. And also, I think it's interesting how you talk about solving problems and what can go wrong, because then as one person looking at the issue, you're always kind of prepared for the worst case situation. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
So always prepare for the worst with an answer in hand.
Yeah. As the attorney will always think, what's the worst can happen, and have I planned for the worst? And once you plan for the worst, then it's like, okay, at least those bases have been covered.
So does the kind of executive coach side of you, since both of these you're looking at things very logically, you're saying, what is the problem? What is the worst case scenario? How are we going to fix this? And does the executive coaching side kind of bring in the creativity when it comes to finding the actual solution?
Well, I think it's not so much the creativity finding the solution, but it's more making sure I'm asking people the right question. I think that's what's important. So a lot of times executives jump to answers, so they jump to conclusions right away. And they don't take that time to slow down and say, what information do I need? What are the right questions to ask? So it's taking that time as a coach to really just sort of listen to what the person told me and ask a further question, because there's always more information when you start asking the right questions. So so that coaching piece of it has really taught me over the years to slow myself down and don't jump to solve the problem right away.
Right. So would you say, and maybe I'm wrong, but would you say that maybe the order in which you go about it is maybe first look at it from the coach side, ask the right questions, extract all the kind of relevant information that is needed in a situation? Then the kind of engineer is looking at the problem. So, oh, actually, no, then the attorney is looking at, okay, what can go wrong? What's the worst that can happen? And then finally, the engineer is like, okay, let's solve the problem. Let's find a solution, and let's kind of get on with it.
It's actually in the reverse order. So the engineer is going to want to solve the problem. It's an instinctual habit to want to solve the problem all the time. And then the attorney is going to say, okay, here's a solution. What do I need to be worried about? And the coach is going to say, what other solutions did I not consider? What questions did I not ask? I have assumed that this is the right answer. I need to talk to people and say, is there another approach I haven't considered here? What are your concerns with this approach? Like those type of questions. So,
it's let's say it's a circle as well, because of course the moment that you get to the next questions, and of course the engineer will come up with another solution or another answer. So it's a kind of a not perpetual, but it's a kind of an ongoing thing. And I think you change roles or you change hats. So you have 3 different hats, and I think your strong point, and we'll get to the second question when we talk about boards, is that you can wear those different hats. And you also understand, if you're in the role of executive coach, you understand the engineer and you understand the attorney. And we think that very often in a situation or in a board, there is only attorneys or there's only engineers. Because of course, if we look at the traditional makeup of a board, it's all CEOs. So they all think in the same way, which is of course, which we know is not the best.
Yeah, the three ways that I think, I didn't start off doing that obviously in my career, but over the years I've developed it, and it's almost like it's forced me to look at problems in a very, very different way. Like there's a set like process to solve problems, and most people only know one step, right? And so I feel like I have those 3 steps that I use to help come to solutions. So I'm also, it's interesting what you mentioned about the different roles on the board, because I'm also good at translating. When you have just attorneys on the board, they're all going to talk and say, it depends, we don't know, we can't answer your question. So I'm very good at translating what that means, right? So and to get sort of like, well, this is why they're not able to answer your question or something like that. So
Okay, good.
Okay, awesome. I think we have a decent amount for this question.
Sure.
So could move on in the next one. Okay, so in the next one, we say facilitation, coaching, consulting, and advising. They all come under the umbrella of executive coaching for board. So what is the value of executive coaching for board members, and how does that support the members to kind of work together more successfully?
So I think what's very interesting about boards is that they're people that come together with very unique experiences, very different perspectives, which is what you want. You don't want a vanilla board at all. So it's all these different perspectives that come together. And if you have somebody on the board that's used to the executive coaching piece, which is taking different perspectives, stepping back and asking questions, it can make the decision-making process richer and easier. And a good example I have of that is it's actually on a nonprofit board that I serve on. We were, just when COVID was starting, this is a board that makes most of its money on in-person events. And COVID was on the horizon at that point in time. And I was in a board meeting and I brought out the fact that, we need to be looking at COVID here. We don't know what the impact is going to be. And some of the board members were like, no, it's not going to impact us. We don't need to worry about it yet. And others were saying, absolutely, we need to look at that. So it was getting a little bit heated, and people were not listening to each other because it was a very emotional topic. And I kind of stepped into the middle of all that, and I started to put on that role of like, how can I coach these 2 sides of the board to come together over something that was, unknown to all of us. We didn't know how to react to it. There was clear opinions on either side. So I stepped into that role of like, we really need to talk about this. We need to understand each other's sides. We can't, kick the can down the road or, get very, crazy right now, but let's look at this problem. So I was able to bring the board together in a way that was resulted in a very appropriate and calm solution, if you will.
So we could also potentially tie this into the first question where you used all three of the skills and perspectives to kind of approach this whole new set of challenges, which were obviously completely unprecedented and nobody knew how to kind of approach it. And you were able to relay that to the board because maybe they were not able to think about the situation in the same way you were as an attorney, engineer, and executive coach.
Because I was definitely thinking about the risks and things like that they may not have been thinking about. So yeah, that's a very good example of how all those crystallized together.
Right.
Yeah, and I think the interesting part here is that, and that's what we discussed before, is that there are not a lot of executive coaches on boards.
Mm-hmm.
And having an executive coach in your board who understands the business, who understands the board, who knows the other board members really well, I think it's a great, let's say, additional role that you have, apart from, let's say, you're not being elected to the board because you're an executive coach, you're being elected because of your engineering and your attorney background and your CEO background. That's why you're on the board. But you bring this additional layer, let's say, of understanding and being able to work with that internal group dynamic. And I think that's an interesting thing that we should, that I would like to stress in this part, because I think that's unique. I mean, you have either an executive coach or you have, let's say, a business person, but the combination that you have, and I think for a board, to me, it's like, wow, it's two birds or three birds actually with one stone. So I think that's what we should stress here.
I'm actually thinking that maybe we can combine these questions because the first one is a great introduction and the second one is almost like a great example that supports that. So if we choose to combine it, we can maybe combine these two. Otherwise, we could leave it separate since the second one focuses on boards and we want that kind of focus as well.
Yeah, let's see.
Yes. Okay, is there anything else you would like to add to this one? Anything else specific?
I don't think so.
Okay, perfect. So then we can go on to the third one, which talks about how you are passionate and an advocate for a master in truly developing people, and your expertise in coaching comes from your deep cultural understanding, your different experiences in different industries, your own leadership experiences, and the leadership skills that you have developed over the years in your various positions. So do you want to just tell us a little bit about this whole kind of journey and how you have gone about being able to help developing people in business?
So I can talk a little bit about the journey. So I was, I've lived in different countries and had different cultural experiences. So I was raised in Canada, in French Canada, and obviously my roots are from India, and I have worked for companies that were based in Canada, companies that were based in Europe, Southern companies, like, typical US companies. So I've worked across the breadth of not only industries, but locations. If you look at the industries that I've worked in, I've worked from traditional pulp and paper engineering into environmental engineering, into engineering consulting for, like EPA and state governments. I was a consultant for them. Then I worked in Umicore, which was a precious metals technology business. I worked in a law firm as well for 5 years, and in the firm I'm currently. So I've done a variety of different industries. I haven't stayed in just one industry at all. So I've continuously moved around. Every time I moved into a new company or new industry, I was presented with a chance to grow and develop. I seem to have chosen companies that were really focused on growing their people. Or I sought out those opportunities. I'm not really sure if one created the other or not. But I have since a very young age always looked for ways to improve myself. If there was something put in front of me that I was told, well, this might be hard for you to do, or we don't think you can do it, then that was what I needed to do. I needed to be able to prove. So I've been on this constant journey of what's out there, how can I learn it, how can I become better at it. So I often tell people, like, my happiest day is when I have something in front of me I know nothing about. Like, I absolutely love that. Most people run away from that, but to me, the best day in the world is like at the end of the day, I'm like, I knew nothing about that, and now look at, I figured it out. So it's just a joyous experience for me. So I think because of that, I've put myself in positions to grow. I've put myself in positions to learn about myself, but also to learn about others. I've been very fortunate to have worked for companies that employed the best in the world in terms of leadership development. So I've attended some of the most amazing classes and have internalized all that. And I now have taken a lot of the information I learned over the years, and I pass that on to people. So I don't view, I've learned a lot about myself and as a leader, and what I do is I share that with people, and it's beyond just a mentor role. It's where I share my story, I share my journey, I share what I learned across the way, and then I help them where they are in their journey. So it's not formalized leadership. I'm not a leadership development consultant, so I don't put on training programs. But I have always looked at my people, tried to figure out where's the best place that I can send them, where's the best way that I can develop them, what is the best project that I can put them on so that they can grow and develop. So does that answer that question, or do you want more on that?
No, I think, sorry, no, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to ask if you believe in two things, which is one is that you should always hire people that are smarter than yourself. And actually that's let's say along the way, whatever could take over your job or could even be in a higher position than you are. And the second thing is the idea of hiring smart people that are you. And I forgot the second one. It'll come back to me. Arushi, you go and I'll think.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say that sort of developing people and their skills and helping them, it's like, to repeat the phrase we used before, it's kind of two birds with one stone, because it's helping them personally, but then it's also helping the larger organization kind of closer to its goal, to its mission, to whatever job they may be doing. So is how do you go about actually helping people, aside from you share your story, you understand their story, see what they're good at, what their potential is, where they may flourish the most to benefit themselves and the organization? And aside from that, is there anything else? Is there any other way in which you approach kind of working with people? Because that's always a sensitive, like the human relationship can be sensitive, but as an executive coach, you have like obviously a good handle on that and understanding people.
Yeah, well, a couple of things. I have a philosophy when it comes to developing people. I believe that it's my duty as a business leader to develop people, and if they leave and go to another place, that's great, because now they've gone and they've taken those skills someplace else. So it only benefits society. So I don't hoard development of employees. I think it's my duty and my role to do that. What I do is when I work with my employees, I spend time listening to where they want to go in their jobs and their roles, and I also look to see things like what kind of personality assessments information can I get from personality assessments, from motivational assessments. What can I learn about this person? Where are they best suited? Where are they happiest? What motivates them? And I try to always look for roles that are going to meet them where they are at in terms of what makes them the most happiest in their job. And I spend time talking with them about what their goals are, what their dreams are with the job, how I can put opportunities in front of them that can let them do that. And I often put opportunities in front of people that scares them, but I do that on purpose because that's what they need. In my opinion, they're going to do it, or if they're too scared, they're not going to, and then that's fine. But I push people a lot to go in directions that they themselves may not think they're ready for. So that's a philosophy I believe I truly hold that of and I have no ownership. Like you said, the hiring the smartest people. I don't hang on to my roles. If, they want to do a piece of that,
Yeah.
that's fine. I don't have that need to do anything. So I'm very, very happy when other people can succeed, and I'll give the credit where the credit's due. So, that's really, it makes me very, very happy when I can see one of my employees that I know was afraid to do something or nervous, and they've succeeded. So
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
what
Yeah.
I've done my job.
So it's helping them grow their comfort zone as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Would you kind of you
Go ahead.
first?
No, go
No,
ahead.
no, I was just gonna say, would you kind of almost describe it as a form of servant leadership, where you're kind of like almost serving your people to help them grow within the organization and outside of it?
Yeah, it's a form of servant leadership, but it's also I'm mimicking what people did for me. So I had a lot of mentors that pushed me into areas that I knew nothing about, and I was like, okay, I'll figure it out. So I model a lot of that on what was given to me by people that saw potential in me, and they did that. So
Good.
Sorry, Anoop, what were you saying before I cut you off?
No, I'm good. I think what's interesting, one of the interesting parts is the idea of, there is this saying, what if I develop my people and they leave?
you're like, that's
What if you
what we don't. Yeah.
And they stay?
Yeah.
I think that's a good thing, and I think that's an interesting item to talk about as well, because you're not developing people for you, you're developing them for themselves.
Mhm.
And if you are, let's say, an employer of choice, and if you offer them the opportunities, etc., they will stay. If something else comes along, or if it doesn't fit anymore, then it's probably better for both parties. But I think if you offer them that support, in principle, you build loyalty, and you create retention as well. And again, you cannot, whatever you do, you cannot hold on to someone forever. I mean, so that's
Yeah.
I like
But
that.
you want to make sure that you gave them all the best opportunities that you can.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I like that. It's nice that you think bigger, let's say, than your own organization. You think, okay, if I teach them something, it will be better for society. Society will benefit, not just my organization, but broader. I like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great. I think we can move on to the next one. Okay, so this is a long question. I'm just gonna read it out. Your focus on strategy helps you simplify complex situations. Apart from that, your nature is to stay calm in times of crisis, which is, of course, a huge added value to any leader, especially as a board director. You need to be able to provide oversight in any situation, no matter how complex it gets. This is an important skill in any situation. So your work in different roles, different industries, as well as having the responsibility of CEO and president, has put you in many new situations. You learn quickly, you adapt quickly, which also helps to kind of simplify complex situations. So can you talk to us about some of the experiences you've had and some of the insights you've sort of generated throughout this process?
So are you looking for instances when I made certain decisions, or I was in a crisis mode, if you will, and how that was handled? Or there's a couple of different thoughts in that question. So I was just trying to get what would be most.
Yeah, I think just how you've used all of these and how when they come together, not just to combat like a challenging situation, but also like a new novel situation, and how you would approach that, and how working at different industries and different roles has kind of come together to how you would approach a new situation. For example, COVID, which could tie into this if you think it's relevant.
So in my career, I've worked in several companies and had very high profile jobs, and as a result, had to make some pretty big decisions that might have had big impacts, or I was dealing with a situation that could be labeled a crisis, and the outcome of it would have had some pretty big impacts one way or the other. I'm reticent to go into a lot of it because a lot of it was like when I was at Umicore, there was a lot of stuff that I was dealing with. Some of it's kind of confidential, so I'm kind of hesitant to go into the specifics of it. But there was many times I had made decisions, or there was an event that happened that might have had really bad consequences or impacts. And so it was my job to remain calm. It was my job to, you know, keep the business focused on where we're going. It was my job to make sure that I evaluated all the options and chose the best option that was put in front of me. And that in situations where I was, you know, there had been an incident or something that happened, that I was handling that in a very calm, professional manner. And so I've dealt with situations where there's been a crisis, and having to lead the company through that and come out on the other side and still be as strong, if not stronger. So does that?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just taking a note.
Can you talk to, I mean, I understand what you're saying, and it's a strong, it's a good strength or feature. Is it something that, let's say, do most people panic, or do they take impulsive decisions? And this is again where it comes in. Okay, we have a situation, we have a crisis. People just act fast, they do stuff which is, let's say, based on panic and based on fear, etc. And are you able to, let's see, you see the situation, you take some distance. I mean, of course it goes fast because we don't have time, but still, you see the situation, you take the distance, you start thinking, let's say, with your triangle brain, and come up with like, okay, so these are the options that we have, these are the solutions that we have. Think if we go there, then this will be the consequence. So is it that capability as well? Is it really like taking the distance, let's say go for a bike ride or a walk for 10 minutes, you let everything sink in, you come back, and or is it about communicating to the teams, to the company, or a combination of the things?
It's about understanding the gravity of the situation. So I'm thinking of a particular example where, you know, I was told something about the company, and I quickly, it's almost like I had laser vision. I was like, okay, I can see how this is going to play out, right? And I can see what we need to get done right away. So I took all the noise outside, and I was like, here's where we need to go, without sort of saying, what am I going to do? How am I going to do this? I don't know. I have to call 5 people. I've figured this out. I was like, this is it. Where, you know, I can see. And then the, you know, the other parts of my brain are like, okay, this is where we're going. Here's the things that can happen. You got to have all this in place. And then I was able to communicate to people like, this is kind of how we're going to handle this crisis. This is what we're going to do. So it's almost like, I can't describe it. I don't panic. I get very focused. I get very calm, and I'm like, this is how we can handle this. This is what we're going to do. And I can communicate to that people with a sense of confidence and trust. So that all comes together when I'm making that decision. So.
And is this something in your oh, it's 4:30, Arushi? Do you have to go?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I'm so sorry, but I will watch the rest of the recording, and I've got good notes for these first 3 and then part of this one. Thank you, Ravila. It was so nice meeting you. Bye-bye.
We'll talk later. Good luck with your next meeting.
Thank you so much.
Bye. Okay, so it's looking from that distance, let's say. Would you say that it's okay, there is a situation, you kind of very quickly, let's say, peel the onion, so you get to the core, and then you take that and you kind of build it back up, and that's, let's say, the solution or the things that you can bring to because of course coming up with a solution is one, but you also have to be able to communicate it. What I wanted to ask, is this something that's your nature, or are there things that let's say experience that you've had in your life that helped you develop, let's say, that skill? So is it let's say nature or nurture?
I think there's a sense of I have a sense of calmness in my nature. People are always telling me that I kind of exude this sense of like, everything could be falling apart, and I'm like, nope, we're good, don't worry. But I've been tested a lot in my career. I've been put in situations, I've been put in crisis type things, I've been having to make really big decisions. And so I've been tested, I think, much earlier than a lot of people age-wise. So I think the combination of me being tested and realizing I can handle it, along with this calmness. Things don't upset me easily, and I don't like get, I don't get all stressed out too
Yeah.
easily.
Yeah.
I have this analogy that I use with all my CEOs. I finally figured it out. I picture my business like a conveyor belt. And so like all day long, the conveyor belt's going and it's bringing me a problem, right? I just have to pick up the problem and solve it and then put it back on the conveyor belt and go away because there's another one coming right here, right? And if I don't realize there's another one coming here, I'm going to spend too much time focused on this one. So I just wait for the next one to come up, deal with it, and then realize, oh, there's another one there too. So I use this analogy when I coach my CEOs, and they're always saying, oh yeah, the conveyor belt, it's really going fast today. But they know this, they see this visual, pick up the problem, solve it, move it away, right?
Yeah.
And don't get hung up on it. So
Yeah.
I figured that out in
Yeah.
my career in time, that this is okay. Like it's what I have to, it's my life, conveyor belt of issues.
Yeah, exactly. I like that. It's a nice, I mean, I'm visualizing it immediately as well. And I see all my everything coming by, and it's, I mean, it's never ending.
Yeah, if you don't deal with the problem, you're going to get it backed up, right? So
Yeah.
that's not good either. So it forces you to deal with it. But
Yeah.
but my coaching clients are like, yep, conveyor belt. Like they've got that visual.
And the best thing of a conveyor belt is that there is a button somewhere where you can push stop.
Yeah. You go on vacation.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Now I think this is interesting. This is good. Okay, then we go to the next one, which talks about your, as we discussed, and we would like to have a little bit more about your executive experience, where part of it, yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay, where part of the thing is that you've been really exposed to high level problems, but you're always able to create sustainable solutions. And of course, on a board, that's an attractive quality, and looking at the bigger picture and come up with solutions and according. So talk a little bit about your experience as a senior executive and how that contributes, let's say, to the mindset that you hold today when we talk about. So again, this is to position you for boards as well.
So I think as a senior executive, when you're working as a senior executive, you have to get things done through people, right? So the skill becomes the ability to influence and to be able to make things happen through your influence, not necessarily dictatorial, but just through your influence, which means that you have to be able to read people very well. You have to understand their motivations. You have to understand agendas. When you're sitting in executive meetings, it really helps to appreciate why people are saying what they're saying. It helps to be quiet and listen enough, not too quiet as a woman leader, but it helps to to not just be talking constantly, and it helps to take in all the perspectives in your brain. So that's what I tend to do. And like, okay, this person's saying this, and this is saying this, and this is saying this, and this is why they're saying it. Is there some sort of middle ground here I can propose? And then I'll say it. So I've learned that ability of like, I think I call it reading the room, but it's understanding people's motivations and agendas, and not taking those personally, but that's where people are coming from and why what are people's interests that are in this meeting, and then looking for a common ground. So use the term sustainable solutions. I'm looking for something that can address all of the different interests and issues that are in the room at that point in time. So that works, I think, for a board perspective, it works really well because, again, the purpose of the board is to bring outside perspectives and diverse viewpoints. And I think it really helps for me not only to learn from my fellow board members because I'm listening to them, but to understand, okay, why would they be saying this? Like, what's in their experience that's made them say that? And how can I kind of bridge that with what this person's saying, you know? So.
Yeah. Is it okay? So when you talk about reading a room, again, this is something that you've been doing for a long time, and you have a lot of experience with this. Is this easier because you're a woman? Because let's say the first rooms that you were let in the early days of your career, let's say your role was more of a listener than maybe participating or having a big role. So that's where you kind of, maybe you learned, let's say you learned the ropes, and it was like, okay, so when I listen, I hear what people are saying. So you, let's say you self-developed also based on that. And
I would say so. I'm a little concerned about leading with, or like talking about, because I was the only woman. But yeah, I did
no,
develop
it's
that.
just from my understanding. It's
Yeah,
not that
yeah.
we necessarily going to read, but it's just write that, but it's just for my understanding. So go ahead.
Yeah. So I think part of it really truly is I have a very, very strong intuition. I can understand why people are doing what they're doing oftentimes before they understand it. And I never appreciated it was a gift. I always thought everyone could do this. And as I've moved in my career, I've been told many, 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 many times that my intuitive strength is kind of way off the charts, because I'll be sitting there, I'm like, huh, why are they saying that? What's going on? And I try to tap into that a lot. That's probably why I feel that I'm a very good coach, is because I have that intuition.
Oh.
And so I've honed that over the years, and I've given it the space to grow. Like I've been like, okay, let's see what's going on here. Let's bring that intuition. And if I let it happen, it is pretty powerful.
Yeah.
So I think as a leader, whether it's a female leader or just a leader in general, I think that has been my power, is I've had that ability to be intuitive. So, which allows me to see around corners and allows me to, like, for people that are focused on details, I can kind of like understand that that's what they need and bring them up, so things like that. So, and like I said, I didn't appreciate that not everyone had this gift. Like I didn't understand that until, I was told many times that.
Yeah. Can we talk a little bit about the, let's say, looking at the bigger picture? Let's say the holistic view. So we have a board, and we have our issues. We have a pandemic, or we have racial issues, whatever it is that we need to solve, and we're mostly all in the nitty-gritty and in the details. And then you say, hey, wait a minute, let's take some distance. Let's look at ourselves or look at our company from a more holistic point of view, and come up with a plan or a strategy and implement it from there.
Yeah, so I don't live in details. Like I'm not a good detail person at all. I don't live in spreadsheets. I can't do that at all. But I am very strategic. So I will, if the conversation is going into details and details and details, I will pull everybody out and say, can we look at it? Can we look at the bigger picture here? Like, where are we trying to go? What are we trying to achieve here? What does success look like? What do you want to do here? And I'll force those kind of conversations to happen, because I can't live in the details, right? So I'll force those conversations, and then we'll go back into details. Like one of the boards I serve on, after all the racial stuff was happening last summer, they were really sort of looking at themselves very closely on how do we want to respond and how can we change mindsets and things like that. And they very quickly went to getting some kind of execution plan in place. And I was like, okay, let's step back. Like, what kind of company do you want to be? What does impact look like to you? Like, how do you know you've succeeded in changing some mindsets or changing some view on racial equity? Like, what does that look like? So let's paint that picture first, and then go back and start figuring out how we're going to get there. So
yeah, that's interesting, because it kind of ties into the way you handle with crises. And even though this is not a crisis, so this works, let's say, if it's something really ad hoc and timely, but it can also work when you talk about oversight. So I think your added value to a board is really great there, because I think a lot of people who come from the corporate world have been in the C-suite or CEO or president or whatever, they still tend to work, let's say, too much in detail.
Mhm.
And of course, when you're on a board, the only thing you can do is oversight.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
that's your thing. I mean,
Mhm.
even probably as being a president or a CEO, you're already about oversight. So the
Mhm.
step, let's say, from what your role is today to a board is actually not that big, because your mindset is already
Right.
about the whole idea of oversight and looking at the big picture.
Yeah, and asking the right questions. I think that that's the piece of the board that some people find difficult is, they don't want to ask the questions because they think they're dumb questions and no one else is asking it. But, having the confidence to ask the questions, but knowing that that's your role is to, be asking management to, provide more information and things like that. So,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a great combination. Okay, let's look at the last question.
Mhm.
You've been involved in a broad variety of industries and roles: manufacturing, chemical engineering, risk, corporate law, governance, compliance, just to name a few.
Mhm.
This has given you the ability to adapt to any industry as a senior executive and engage in focused communication, action, and intentional leadership. How has this molded your ability to overcome challenges, and how did you culminate your experiences and use those toward being an effective board member?
Um, so I think the fact that I have changed industry, been an executive and changed industry several times. Most people don't do that, right? They're not going to step into a brand new industry and take a senior executive role. But because I think that I can figure things out, I'm smart enough to figure things out, I'm smart enough to ask the right questions, I can engender trust quite easily. So I can overcome all those challenges because people see in me somebody that can, you know, drive for action to a certain extent and can make things happen and can understand. And I'm not afraid of what I don't know. I guess very simply, when I took over the role of president of Umicore USA, I competed for that role. It was quite a tough competition, and I was given the role, and had never been in that role before, ever. And I still remember it to this day, my role acceptance speech. I mean, I wish I could go back and do it. It was so like juvenile in a way, but another lesson that I've learned. But it was like I didn't know what I didn't know at all, right? And when I go back and look at it, I'm like, oh my God, how much you as a person had so much to learn, right? But I did the journey and I did it and I learned it, and I didn't step off when it got tough, and I didn't, it was there, it was put in front of me for me to learn in this life. Like it was there for me. It was the opportunity I was given, and I learned a lot from it. And now I'm helping other people as a result of it. So I think I overcome challenges simply because to me they're fun. Like I can't describe it any other way. It's like it is really fun, like when I don't know something and I can learn it. And I think that's, being an effective board member, I'm not going to end up on a board in industry I know everything there is to know about. It's not going to happen, right? I'm going to end up very similar to how I became an executive in an industry I didn't know very much about, and I'm going to have to learn and ask the right questions again and not be afraid of it, right? So I think the same way I overcame those challenges will make me an effective board member, because I'm going to bring that perspective, I'm going to bring my experience, and I'm going to bring that sort of that desire to learn and that thirst for knowledge and understanding to the board as well.
Yeah. Okay, I'm thinking just a little bit devil's advocate. So we say, well, we're our board. We're not in the service of we don't have the time, let's say, to train someone or to have a board member who doesn't know our industry or doesn't know our business. So we just have to make sure that the way we write this is not like, I don't know anything about your company, but I really would like to be on your board. So
no, I understand
what I'm saying. So we need to make sure that it's like, nobody knows everything about a certain company or a certain board or industry. But having been in all these different roles in all these different industries and having created new jobs that didn't exist, or having created new, all these things, and not shying away from the unknown, embracing challenges and stuff like that. I think that broad experience combined with, let's say, your hunger to learn or your hunger to grow and improve, it's like, hey, wait a minute, if she joins our board, then we're going to have someone that can tap into engineering, law, coaching, all the different industries that you worked in, risk, chemical engineering, whatever it is. So you have knowledge from all those different spaces. And then combined with that, your personality, you know, whatever is coming on our way, we're going to peel it off, we're going to analyze it, and we're going to come up with right questions, solutions, and the risk mitigation part. So it's really this kind of, I mean, let's say you're almost a board on your own, which of course you're not, but so that means that every board member, you can connect with every board member because you have some understanding of all the different parts. And you have the ability to, let's say, to go not above, but to take the distance as the coach and look at us as a group and how we improve our efficiency or effectiveness.
That's a very good point. What I've noticed at this point in my career is I can have a conversation with almost anybody and I will have something in common with them. Like there'll be some part of my career that would have touched what they did as well. So it's really been fascinating to me that no matter who I end up talking to, they're like, oh, I remember, like we have this point in common of something we've done similar.
Which is of course great, because in a board you want to build rapport, and if we're looking at, you know, we need to diversify boards, and if you're the first woman to join a board, then it's hard. But if you go on that level and you can find the common grounds or the elements that you have in common,
exactly,
then it's kind of, it's done, because they will accept you, you'll be part of them, and then you can start working. I like that. I think that's good.
So that's been a very, probably in the last 10 years, it's been a unique experience I've had, where the connection, sometimes I'm just like, I surprise myself, like, I can't believe I found a connection with this person of all people, you know, but yeah, definitely. I think it has to do with like the fact I'm not unidimensional, like I have a lot of dimensions to me. You know, not only just my cultural background, but my industry background and my roles that I've had, my interests and everything like that. So it's all come together as a puzzle.
And it's about, I think, and that's of course what I think is the most interesting thing there is about life is learning. And learning means that you're open-minded. Learning means that you want to grow, that you want to improve. And if you have that mentality, then you know, the world is your oyster in a way, and you can go everywhere. And if you would not be an eternal learner, then you would not have been in all these industries and not in all these roles and doing new stuff and sharing it, let's say, with people around you. So I think that's
I think you capture that.
I think that's nice. I really, really like the idea of helping people grow to their next level, because it will benefit society, not just our organization. I really think we'll use that in one of the stories, but I think that's such a wise statement, which I think we should get out there, because there are so many people, or way too many people, who don't want to share and want to keep the people for themselves, and just ridiculous. I mean, look at the new generations. If you're lucky if someone works with you for 2 or 3 years.
Absolutely.
What are you going to do? Are you going to not develop them?
Right. No, absolutely.
Not invest in them? So it's like, and it's the thing, if you look at a bigger picture, I invest in my people, then they quit and they go working for you. Great. I have invested in a person, quits and joins my organization. So it's like, if we can, and of course that's difficult, but if we can look at it as one system, we're helping everyone and every company to be better, and it's give and take, and it's just about sharing everything that we have and that we learn. Oh, wouldn't that be a nice world?
Yeah. Plus the other thing is, like, you know, you cross these people's paths your whole life, right? So it's you can't hoard talent, you can't hoard development. It's a gift for the world, and so I really strongly believe that. And I fortunately have had a lot of people that invested in me, and I didn't stay with the company, but there was no hard feelings. And I realized that I took what they taught me and I took it to my next company, and I made all of those people better, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay, that's great. Well, I think we have enough in to start with. So we'll start writing some first versions, and we'll see. I think we'll focus on 4, and I'll discuss with Arushi which we think what if we can combine or whatever we're gonna do. But we'll be working on those. We might send you the first one first, and then I'm not sure if we'll send you all 4 in one go. But we'll. Because I would like to send you the first one. What is it today? Tuesday. I would like us to send you the first one at least early next week.
Okay.
And then I'll see if it's 1 or more stories. But so we can keep the production, let's say, going.
Okay, perfect. Okay, sounds
good.
great.
Well, if you think about another anecdote or whatever you'd like to share, just let me know. But I think we'll just write the first versions, and then we can work on those.
And then it might trigger something.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure it will.
Okay. Well, thanks for your time today. I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
thank you too for your stories and sharing, and we'll be in touch soon.
Okay, great. Thank
Okay,
you.
take care.
Bye.
Bye.